Computer audio, test, test, test. Yes, working. Dispense chat, start popping in. Five. That one also download. Number 5, you may start into murder.
That's totally fine. Friends. And I got sucked into it. And now myself for downloading it. Let's see.
Oh. Murder. No one's popped in yet. Huh. Usually there's somebody popping on by about now. Yeah. It's the right one. We go over to no. Here. Over here. Yeah, that's the one I started. That's us. Yeah.
Maybe they're just like the internet has been like really wonky today.
Yes.
Like sometimes it goes out and I'm like, okay,
We'll see
fine.
who's here in class. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. We got more people than that. It's fine. So we'll see how it shakes out. Tell me what's going on in the world while we're getting started. There's been kind of a recurring thing that's been going on where every morning I've been coming in here and I've been talking about this. Speech, right? One, I love it when you guys talk. That's very, very true. The reason being is one, it makes the class a bit more conversation. I realized last week I had to record myself for a presentation. It was a 15-minute presentation. It's one I could rattle off at the top of my head. It literally just, I could go into a 15-minute conversation about it. Having to record myself, talking to myself. It took me like 2.5 hours. I threw some things, I tore a shirt, I cussed up a whole bunch, threw some more things. At the end of that, it's like, I hate recording myself. It is the most unnatural thing, just talking into a camera. It's like when there's real people there, you can have a conversation. And the best part of it is you guys will bring up ideas that I won't. Oh, look, all of a sudden 3 people popped in. That is really
That's
weird.
what she was trying to get your attention.
earlier.
Oh, yeah, I was lost in thought.
I thought you went over there and like did something and I thought that's what you did.
No, I was just checking the time. So while they're popping in, it looks like, I don't know if their audio is already connected or not. Looks like it is. Usually there's like a little bit of a lag there. So there's something going on here. The reason why I like it when you guys talk is you'll bring up ideas that aren't currently something that I'm thinking about. And it'll keep me off into going into a different conversation that is directly related to whatever it is we're talking about. It's one of those things that's very, very important. It's how, one, we interact with each other all day long. It's the first mode of contact we have with each other, speech, right? After that, things get physical. They can be good or bad. Like, you can take that either way, right? It's how we convey most of our information. All of our knowledge is in written word, right? Why am I talking about this again? What's been going on in the world? You guys don't watch any popular stuff, do you?
No.
Okay, we'll do this for like a couple minutes. You'll like this.
If it makes you feel any better, I watch like cat shows where they like tell me about like cats. So like I am learning. It's just not like.
You're gonna be a vet, are you? I do like small animals. Well, mine's usually a different thing, like, no.
Yeah, it's like I am learning. It's just not appropriate.
So I said, there is no conspiracy against Russell Brand. You guys heard anything about that? Russell Brand, what's going on with Russell Brand? Okay. There's no conspiracy. What I want to find is,
Thank you.
keep this brings that, because the title of it really literally uses the word idiots. There you go. The deep state didn't frame Russell Brand, you idiots. The anti-establishment podcast accused of sexually assaulting at least one person. I think there was a couple. There's no evidence at all of a conspiracy trying to destroy him for his politics. Right? So he's been in trouble because basically it's past. These people, they do a lot of bad things when they're coming up. They do a lot of bad things when they got a lot of money. They got a lot of bad things they do whenever they do most everything, because they've got that power and that opportunity to. Like I said, drug use. You're gonna say, what kind of drugs do you think he's used in his lifetime? Just types. How many of them? Probably most of them, right? Yeah. Like, that stuff's expensive. How do you get access to that money? How do you get access to that fame? Right? That kind of thing. Recently, he's been in hot water for the sexual assaults that have come out. There's been some conspiracy talk because of the timing of it, because in the last few weeks or so, yeah, allow it. I'm on the campus. There you go. Destroying him for his politics. Basically, what he's done is he's spoken out about, well, a lot of that. There's been a lot of big pharma stuff. There's been some political stuff. Probably the biggest one that he did really well that I'd seen was he went on was it Bill Maher? I want to say it's Bill Maher. I can't remember the name of the show. But someone was giving him grief for questioning, you know, the requirements for the vaccine and that kind of stuff. And basically what it's saying is like, okay, so taxpayers funded all the development for it, right? Companies, they took that money, they developed it, and they turn around and then they have vaccine. Government turns around, pays for vaccine. So they got paid for developing it, they got paid for putting it out. When's the money come back to the taxpayers? Because they're the ones who invested in it that led to its development. It's like, you got some problems, and now we're requiring you to take it in certain places. It's like, yeah, there's some problems there. So you start outlining some stuff like that, some other things, and he's done some bad things in his past too, probably. And so there's a question as to whether or not there is a conspiracy. Why am I talking about that? If I said Russ, actually, let me talk about speed for a second, and then we'll go back to conspiracy stuff. How do you know if you have free speech? Okay, we have an amendment. So in a couple weeks, we'll move into speech stuff, and this is kind of helping to frame it, but you can see how relevant it is for right now, particularly with internet stuff. We have an amendment. We know our rights are not unlimited, and I'll use a common phrase you probably all heard. Freedom of speech does not mean freedom from
Consequence.
yeah, consequence, right? Is that what we're talking about here? So what happened with him is because of the recent allegations, he's been removed from many platforms where he makes the bulk of his earnings, right? Podcasting, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, how much do you make doing that? Him, I'd be surprised if it's not hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year. He's had those things cut off. How do we know if you have speech here? It's like, you say something, what happens? Right? Something happens. Maybe people agree with you, maybe they disagree with you, maybe they hate you, right? There are some ideas that are atrocious, right? If I say them, you're like, that's horrible, right? We'll say that anything racist, like if I said actual racism, like one race is superior than another, it's like, yeah, that's bullshit. We're dealing with people. We're not dealing with races, right? But there's all kinds of things you can say. It'll get you in trouble. If I said something overtly racist, it's like, yeah, it's gonna lead some trouble, right? And it should, to some degree. Why am I bringing this up? What do they do in China? You say something that's against government.
Go to jail.
Yeah, you're talking about maybe prison, could be death, could be just disappear. That happens quite frequently. Look up the doctors who blew the whistle on COVID in China. How many of them just, oh,
Yeah.
amazing, right? All of a sudden they just disappeared. Okay. I'm on China. Okay. I'm walking across. Did I talk to you guys about crosswalks last time? It was a story I saw that was really cool. I think it was last week I saw it, so that's why I asked that. It was about people who cross the crosswalks, right? Got lights on both ends. Right? What happens if you're in the middle of the crosswalk and it changes color?
It's your fault.
You keep walking though, right? Yeah, you keep walking. Traffic's not gonna run you down. Right? They're not allowed to. They have to wait. You have to yield to the pedestrian in traffic, right? So effectively what happens to you if you take too long in that crosswalk that you're legally allowed to use? It's not the same thing as jaywalking, like where you just walk right out in traffic. Usually the worst thing about that is you get hit by a car, right? What happens if you do that in China? You take too long in the crosswalk.
Oh, they like take a picture of you and shame you.
Yeah.
Walk of shame, and then what happens? Your ability to spend money, to travel, your ability to buy food, all of those things change. Your access changes on stuff like that. That's how you know if you have freedom of speech. You say something, is it something that there is an official sanction? Wait, that one's not official. That one doesn't happen. That one doesn't happen at all, right? You go and ask them, it's like, what are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. That one doesn't happen. Talking about those types of things. Or loss of income, those. Said, Parliament Russell Brand letters. Oh, here we go. Rumble rejects MP's disturbing letter over Russell Brand's income. Letters to Rumble. Post its response, we'll go to that in a second. I want to see the letter. You're not going to do it for me. I need a different one. I'll show you its response in a second, because that's the only one that said, no, that's against what we're allowed to do. For purpose of it. UK Parliament sends letters to social media platforms demanding the demonetization of Russell Brand. We're going to stop your income. We're going to make it to where you can't live because of the ideas you hold and what you say. That's a Western country doing that. You think that's going to come here? It's already here. Something to think about. Here's what their response was. No. Today was extremely alerting letter from committee chair and UK Parliament. While we deplore these types of things, all sex crimes, alleged victims and accused are entitled to full and serious investigation based solely on accusations, barring Mr. Brand from monetizing his video content. They have stopped his income. Tell me how freedom of speech. Loss in social credit. That's exactly what it's their social credit system in China. They're moving that here. It will happen. First, it'll happen in those forms where you're looking at it's just consequences. You're not getting anything official saying that you're doing it until letters leak that, hey, government agencies are the ones who are shutting down speech. Didn't we just have about 6 months ago, a whole bunch of information come out about how we had our government setting social media lists. They had the ability to go in and shut people down, make requests to have people entirely shut down for what they were saying. And you're telling me that we aren't already there? That's a hell of a thing to think about. Okay, so that's enough about that. We need to go into things that are more direct. So first violence, and then maybe we'll get to murder. We'll see how it goes. All right. All of these things that we talk about here are developing issues. Every topic that we'll talk about has some type of relevant issue going on right now. So as we're talking about some stuff today, when we start getting to murder, there will be some things that we will talk about that are sensitive in nature. We'll leave that up. I'm gonna move into, not that one just yet. We'll pull up. I think we have a little bit left in chapter 4. So last time we left out, I was talking about entrapment and governmental conduct. So basically what you need to know there, entrapment, I said there are 2 tests, one's subjective, one's objective. That's a way to look at it type lab. Most states will run a little bit of both, meaning they'll look at who we're dealing with. I'm on camera again. Who you're dealing with and what have any agents involved done, right? You need to look at both of those. Some states will err more towards, we're gonna look at the disposition of the person we're dealing with. Some will err more towards, we're gonna look at the officer's conduct first, right? Easiest way to keep those clear is like, if you got a criminal history of said drug, if you're using, or say drug or crime, say it's drugs, since I mentioned drugs. Pick your drug. What kind of drug are you guys interested in today?
Heroin.
Heroin, okay, that's a fun one. You don't get a whole lot done on that one, but yeah, you kind of just lay there, do a little bit, soil yourself, lose your teeth, fun stuff. So you've got, we'll say, 2 heroin possession convictions for you. 6 officers approach you under the guise of their friends, people you know, friends of friends, and they slowly talk you into going out and buying more heroin and trafficking it. You know, you'll get a hell of a deal if you go buy this amount. Then guess what? Your own usage is essentially free whenever you get this where it needs to go, because that's the way it works, right? Profits or drugs, your choice. Usually won't find both. Okay, you take those drugs, you're gonna traffic them. Okay, those officers spent 3 years talking to you to get you to the point where you'll traffic it. They're using a subjective, it doesn't matter. That subjective test is, you have a history of doing this, right? You're a known drug user, maybe you got drug trafficking, maybe you're carrying just enough to get the trafficking fine, right? Or the, citation. Won't matter what they do, you've got that history. On the extreme other end, they're only gonna look at the officer's actions. Like usually what you get is some mixture of both. Like if I said, what would be a good example? Probably when you look at outrageous conduct, it's that kind of stuff where you're really violating someone. Like, I'm gonna go pump your stomach to get whatever it was you swallowed. Like, yeah, it'll convict you. But if you've ever had your stomach pumped, it's not fun, right? If you've, the other one, big one was a bullet, was related to someone was shot. Obviously, the person who shot was the attacker. I mean, it's like they just wanted to confirm it. It's gonna require surgery. No, you don't get to cut somebody open to get something out of them, right? That's too far. Defenses of property and persons. Fleeing felon rule. You all have heard of Garner, right? Tennessee versus Garner. That is the fleeing felon rule. That's a case from the 1970s. That case put an end to it. So it used to be if you committed a felony and you were fleeing, guess what? I can use whatever means to stop you, up to deadly. This case, what you had was I don't know if he was juvenile or not, but he was shot in the back of the head while running from police carrying what was essentially $5 worth of stolen goods. We value life here. That's not equal, right? If you go across the world, you won't find that, right? Piss off the right people in the right places in the world. Guess what? Your body's getting drugged through a ditch somewhere, right? That's how that works. Here, we give it some value. Now, basically, what you talk about, the only way you get that is there has to be some type of grievous and imminent harm coming, right? To you, those around you, those types of things. It varies by state to a significant degree, right? We talked about stand your ground, that kind of thing. We didn't talk about defense of persons and property. Persons is pretty straightforward. Most places will allow for that, right? You got that risk for grievous harm, so great serious bodily harm, or imminent death. Both of those are very like right here, right now. Property though. Can you do that? Some places you can. Ahmaud Arbery, that's the guy's name. I've been trying to think of him for a while. What happened to him?
Shallow running pretty much.
Yeah. Right? Okay. So, that case was is that one Georgia?
That was Tennessee.
Was it Tennessee?
Thanks.
I couldn't remember. Okay, is that the one where house was being built? And kept going into it, or is that a different one?
A different one.
There's a lot of them, there are a lot of similarities between a lot of these things. Right, so we'll say. Guy running. Can you shoot him? Usually no. Is the Ahmaud Arbery one is that the one where the group of people in the truck attacked him, or is that different?
It was
That's-
the dad and son
So
that
it's
were in the
things-
truck and then they just shot him for it.
Okay. Yeah, okay, hold on one second, yes,
The six is almost dead.
good. Then you can listen and learn.
Can I plug it in?
No,
They're more behaved than last time you said.
yeah, I know, the youngest one is usually the trouble, the youngest male and the oldest male. They're really a lot alike, and so they are a constant unit. I don't know what it is, it's just those two. The rest of them have their own difference, it's those two. Property, so the Ahmaud Arbery thing. Right, so depending on the state you live in, maybe you can defend your property. If I'd had a little bit more time, there was a video I wanted to pull in where it shows. Guys, you can actually have the 911 phone call where he calls in. Someone's breaking into my neighbor's house.
And then shoots him.
Yeah, goes off into his yard, the neighbor's yard, drops the guy in the yard, no charges. State statutes were written to allow for defense of property. You're defending your neighbor's property, and it was acceptable. It's like really shaky territory. It's like, yeah, you do want to be able to defend your property, but also you don't want to be in a situation where that kind of stuff is allowed, because you will have people who go out of their way to use that extreme level of force to defend their property, even when it's not needed. Like, another example, I want to say this one happened here in this state not too long ago. Car full of, was it young females, pulls into the driveway of the wrong house was it out in the country, or was it just a small town? It's out in the country. Before they can get turned around to leave, they're under fire and one of them dies. It's like, yeah, that ship doesn't fly. That person needs to go to prison from now on. Like, yeah, you don't need to be out there. You're too dangerous. So this shaky chicken boy. If I said, let's see if I can find that real quick. And so it's like, am I spelling that right? Maybe. Nope, I'm not spelling it. I didn't think I was. All right.
So you shoot, yeah. And you have to,
Driveway to turn around and they got, you know.
there's like
Yeah.
new rules with it, like they have to. be
Threatening. Yeah,
in front
School
of
bus.
you.
yeah.
Like, I understand like someone's going to come out, but like if you're still in your vehicle, like give them
Yeah,
time.
and then.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, you should. That's normal.
They had to actually be like,
It was out there.
like your premises.
But it was in like the
Yeah,
neighborhood
that
that the
point.
school was in.
Mhm.
Like it was bad. And it was. like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got a lot of crazies
I'm
out there.
pretty sure they do
Essentially is
the
what it is.
U-turn. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't know why they're so weird. Yeah.
It's kind of scary.
Right.
It's like, oh, if I pull
Yeah.
up your driveway, are you gonna shoot
Is
me?
this the right video? The shooting, said Monterey. I can never remember this. Like I said, these things are so common. Usually you have about 2 or 3 big ones each year. And so it's really hard for me to keep track. I don't know if this is the right video or not. Yep, this is him running. Okay, so at this point in time, we know if the house is somewhere back in this general direction. You have a person who's following video recording. You have the people up here. One of them has a shotgun. Is that correct? Right? He's running up. Is it the guy in the back has a shotgun? Dude, hold your camera steady. Shit's gonna get wild. Get back.
Yeah.
There you go. Wait a second.
That's-
Boom, that's where it went off. That's the shot that killed him. He's engaged in physical combat with those people. Right? How many of you have seen this before?
I never seen the video.
I know. It's a reason. So I'll back that up and say, it's curious that it's not been shown as much as it has been, right? It has. It is very curious. Now, it's really hard to split out the things that are kept from you because there's just too much information and the things that are purposefully hidden. This is a lot like the conversation I had in procedure. It was like, okay, how do you sort the good cops from the bad cops? It's not really easy. It takes a hell of a lot of time. The ones who are up to bad things, they know they're up to things that aren't good. They'll purposely keep those obscured. It's almost like they're planning on doing it more, right? Same kind of thing. This one, I want to say even the guy who was video recording had some type of long prison sentence. It's like there's something that's not right there. So that as we go into the different crimes, we'll kind of talk about that some. In terms of self-defense, who's defending themselves here? How the hell do you sort that out? Okay, we'll take it from we'll say, honest person's point of view. You're walking into this right here. Let's say you're at Walmart parking lot. You see two people fighting. One's got a shotgun and it goes off. The other person's dead. What do you do?
Run.
That's a wise decision, right? Right. Good. Some people will want to get involved, right? Some people have to get involved. If you got a certain uniform on, you have to, right? If you don't, you're just a regular person there. Ideally, you call the police. Ideally, you're recording, that kind of thing. Hopefully, it doesn't open you up for liabilities, which it may. You respond in this situation, how do you know you got the good guy, the bad guy, and you're just not unnecessarily killing someone? You don't know, right? It's not at all easy to tell these things apart. And so if we were looking just at this situation right now, who's the aggressor? Who's the victim? I mean, you could say, okay, I'm running down the street. Let's say I am out for a jog. I'm running down the street. I see a truck full of people. Some of them are armed. It's like, how aggressive am I? If I'm aggressive, I might fight. If I'm in good physical shape and they're not, I'm more likely to fight, right? Because I know if I win, I'll live. That's a real simple math to that, okay? Let's say you think it's someone who's burglarizing something. Yeah, you want to hold them there. They come at you. What do? You got that gun on you. If they get that gun, what happens? You could be dead. It's their choice now. What do? You put your hands up, that shotgun was in your hands, is now in their hands and could be pointed at you. You don't know who they are. How do you know they won't kill you? You don't. The hell do you do? Looks like you're pretty much screwed on either side here, right? Yeah, that's how life goes. With this thing, it's you never want to find yourself in this situation. You hope that whenever you do, you live in a place where it's written that, but well enough to where you don't have to face criminal charges, realize that you probably still will, even if you do have those defenses already out there in statutes where they shouldn't even charge you in the first place. And that's just the start of this, and they get into the legal arguments and who's thinking what, who has what intent at what point in time. You know, is this murder? Did you go there with that whole purpose? I mean, you got the gun. The gun means that's potentially deadly force right there. You obviously planned this out because you grabbed that before you went to see this guy. It's like, maybe it was that, or maybe it was, I was thinking I'm dealing with someone who's criminally inclined, potentially. It's like, I don't know for certain. So there's that risk there. And if they're potentially criminally inclined, how far would they go to avoid the whole arrest, jail, trial? How far would someone go to avoid that? A lot of people go as far as they need to. Okay. Unlawful threat, imminent death, serious injury, reasonable level of force. Again, always look at your states and try to remember the state that was person got away with, because they literally, like, they didn't even get a charge. It's like prosecutor look at it's like, yeah, this is well within the state statutes. No charge. That's extreme, you don't want that. Alright. Intoxication, we've already talked about. We'll talk about consent and condemnation. How much of this conversation will I have? How much of it do I want to have saved for sex? When we move to the sex crime, it's always a fun conversation because you can identify where people have different understandings of what that term means and how you get it. It's like, and then whenever, even if you get it, it doesn't apply. It's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing. We can move into death. Euthanasia. You guys know what that is, yes? Okay, what is it? Yeah. About the young people over in China, Korea, Japan, the euthanasia. Bad joke. I am so sorry. Euthan. I am a dad. Forgive me. All right. So yeah, killing people because life sucks and some people are suffering and it'd be better if they were gone. And they agree, right? Why don't we allow that? If I said, yeah, we'll just say, suicide booths, not from Futurama. I like it. That's a whole lot better than where what I'm gonna go. Oh, look here, maker of suicide plans to launch in Sweden. Yeah, that's this right here. You want a nice shiny box to die in? You can get buried in it too. Makes it real green. 3D printed pod carry out assisted suicides confident to be used in Switzerland as early as next year. When is this article from? This is from like 2 years ago. What does it do? Legal debate. Provide a person with a series of liquids that, if ingested, will end a person's life. They also have ones that cut off the oxygen so you suffocate while you sleep. Yeah, it's like you're still breathing. The oxygen level drops off. So while you're asleep, you just get more and more tired. You're still breathing. Your body doesn't recognize the fact that's why you're dying. It knows it's dying. And then you just slowly go to sleep and that's it. It's a very efficient, humane way to end people's lives who are suffering. Problem with that is, well, what is the problem with that?
Isn't suicide illegal?
Usually it is. Okay, it's criminal. We don't like suicides.
That's kind of hard to convict.
So,
If they're successful, it's a death sentence, right? Better joke. You guys like that one a little bit more than the euthanasia. Okay, I'll run with that. Okay. From an outset, why do we have a negative viewpoint of this?
Not spoken about as like older people wanting to end their lives on a good note, and being spoken about mental health wise. Younger people.
Okay. So, age, mental capacity,
And
religion. There's an underlying thing to this that we'll talk about. But infirmity. So you have the mental, the physical, just the fact that it happens to all of us. Youth, usually what you're talking about is right here. You're dealing with that relationship between young and mentally ill. To be more specific, you're talking about what type of mental illness usually?
Depression.
Yeah, depression. How many people are depressed in this country? Like most, right? If you're looking at low levels of depression, most people have some form of it. If I asked you, let's see, today is the 25th. Your last paycheck. Think about that. How much was food? Starting to feel a little down. I know, I sure as shit am. I had to rebalance my whole. I keep a monthly budget. I had to go and double the amount of money I had in there because I hadn't done it in the last 3 years. And why the hell is it double now? COVID and everything that fell apart related to it, right? Everything fell apart. And now we're trying to get it back together and we're gonna see who's on top, I guess, in the next couple of years. Depression, everyone has it, to some degrees. Plus, like me, it comes with a side bit of mania. Manic depression. That makes me feel good. One of the big reasons why I look down on it is one, you're losing significant investment, significant opportunities, lives. It's like, it's not just lives, like the people who die, it's like everything that they could have done with their life, everything we already invested with it, it's just gone. That's pretty shitty. The problems that they were facing, guess what? They didn't go anywhere. In fact, people that are around them now have even more to deal with. Great. Nope, just getting shittier. So yeah, we kind of keep trying to avoid that cycle. This one is always an interesting thing because what that ties back into is that relationship between people, culture, and the society. As we move into, we'll go into murder here in just a minute. When we start that, we'll get through the PowerPoints, we'll have some discussions, and then what, I don't know if I'll do it halfway through or if I'll wait to the end. There's gonna be a significant departure. We'll talk about a huge cultural issue right now, and it's gonna deal with death, right? Not this one, but it'll be a different one. We'll spend a couple weeks talking about that one because you'll see it too has a heavy element of this in it. The biggest thing is, if you think back to the nature of this country, where people are at, the jurisdiction they're in. You get enough of a population in an area, they will sway the voting. That's the whole idea behind it, right? Let's say, if you want a good plan for how to take over this country, you know how you do it? Wait a generation, you send a whole bunch of people here, you wait a generation and see, okay, did they assimilate or not? They assimilated, now they're part of this country, great, we just lost a whole bunch of people. They come in and the whole idea that they're going to wait a generation to derail the country, you can do that. That's pretty easy, right? Just take a little bit of time and money. Got sidetracked. Religion. Some religions take a very difficult standpoint because Catholics, I've got some Catholic people in my family. This is a ticket to hell, right? Well, that's a hell of a thing because life's so shitty, you gave up because there is no hope for you at this one point in time. You're doomed forever. Yeah, that's a hell of a thing. It's a hell of a thing to wrestle with. Like, that's one of the reasons why it kind of takes its current stance it does in this country, and why there's still heavy debate about whether or not some people should be allowed to opt out of life. You deal with someone who's at late stage bone cancer. It's like, if you knew how much pain they're in, how heavy a doses of narcotics they're taking, the fact that they're only going to be around for a few more weeks and they have to go through like what, we'll say 2 months of it. It's like, the fuck's the point of that? There isn't one, right? At that point in time, it's like, if they have their own personal point to stay around, good for them. If they want to shove off early, who's any of us to stop them? Why? But again, go right back to this. What was that first thing that popped up whenever I did that? Is that on the scene? Yeah, first thing. Contact us. We'll go more into that in a minute. This is usually criminalized. This will be criminalized. Yet today in society, we're going through the same debates. I said suicide, Canada. What's going on in Canada related to suicide? You might have remembered me talking about it last semester. Maybe you. Do you remember what was happening in Canada? I don't. Okay. Suicide Canada. I like that it's right up there. That is actually excellent. Complex and deeply personal issues. Yes. Eligibility for persons suffering mental illness. Now you've got mental illness and they're willing to kill you? Yeah. let's see. The eligibility date for solely mental illness is March next year. Meaning, you only have depression? Okay, that's fine. That's where we're going. You don't think that's coming here? Okay. This mentioned juveniles in it. No, that doesn't mention juveniles. Go back to suicide juveniles. It's gonna give me rates. Okay. Says it's not pushing minors to end their lives. What's this about? Okay, so it's gonna give you a news fact, yes, facts. Social media users are misrepresenting a screenshot of the advocacy organization's website's proof of cannabis depression. Yeah, they're gonna open it up to youths is what they're saying. They're advocating to open it up for youths now. The stuff can't unravel when you start to open the doors to some things. Some doors are easier if they're left shut. It's not to say that they're better. So we've got to figure this out. Here, no, that's the next one on the side. I still have it up here. Do PTSD we need to talk about a little bit. Most stuff you already know. Gone through a lot of it. Mitigating PTSD. Talk about that. So that's less that I have on there. So I guess that's all I need to say about this is suicide now. We'll revisit it here in just a second. We move into murder. PTSD, what you need to know from that. Trauma. Trauma, any trauma, can cause psychological harm. No news there, right? What kinds of things can cause a type of trauma that will excuse you from actions that could be criminal? Well, that one's right there, it outlines better, but it's sort of like, the justifications for it are pretty easy to say. Like, take your, it's kind of straw man kind of arguments like domestic abuse situation. How many times you get beaten before you die, right? When's it enough to that person breaks and they're gonna be like, all right, I'm gonna drop this person first. That happens. Then it's up to a jury to decide, okay, was that murder or was that the result of this? Not easy to say. Here. Traumatic. That's not that one. Now we'll do this one because it'll relate to this. Overview of violent crimes. I'm not going to do that. We'll talk about most of them separately. Homicide. General issues. Definition of death. Definition of another human being. All right. This is suicide. You're talking about another human being. You're talking about death. That one's pretty straightforward. Where we get into that. Say. How bad is it? All right. When I say how bad is it? Okay, here's where we could hit a point where this could get emotional. I'm gonna ask a question I don't want to answer. Okay. How many of you have had close family members extremely sick? How many of you have had them when they're over 80? Right? You got family members over 80, they're having some type of serious medical issue, right? It is not uncommon for them to go to the hospital. They're going to be hooked up to a machine that helps them. If you turn it off, you're going to put them into serious jeopardy. They might die. Do you pull the plug?
If they want it.
Pull the plug. Is that a question of whether or not they want to? Okay. So you need something like a, DNR. You guys know what that means? Does anyone here not know what that means? Is that not?
Not resuscitate.
There you go. Excellent. Good. Do not resuscitate. Meaning, for any reason, I'm in the bathroom and I squeeze a little too hard when I'm going number 2 and my heart stops. Yeah, you just leave me there, kind of thing. Don't resuscitate. Most people have a heart attack when they're shitting. Yeah. This is where you're pushing, the position you're in, the pressure on the nerves. Yeah, a lot of people die having heart attacks while shitting. Great way to go. Less cleanup. Actually, you probably get it on both ends. Less cleanup for you and less cleanup for the people coming after you too, because at least you're near a toilet kind of thing. There will be times that this is an option. Will we always know what that person wants? Okay,
No.
so we don't know that. Let's say they do have a DNR. Let's say they automobile accident. They are now in a medically induced coma. Outlook for them unknown. How long before this becomes a question?
Do they have a DNR?
They have a DNR on file. They're still working. They're just in a medically induced coma. They've had some type of traumatic brain injury.
But
They're
they're,
unconscious. They will be for a long period of time.
are they brain dead?
Right? Brain dead. Spell that. Okay, no brain activity. That's one factor. Let's say that there is some. So you can't say that you're brain dead. Definitely can't live on your own. You're gonna be in this coma for how long before you get to decide?
Isn't it like 30 days?
I don't know, you tell me. 30 days is a number.
I think it also depends on like their spouse or
Yeah.
their family.
Okay.
member.
So it's not just of the person themselves,
They can't
of
make that decision
those closely tied to that person. Okay,
based on top quality of
oh, that's another thing. Quality
life. Below a certain-
of life. Oh, okay, I heard level and I was like, can say what I'm looking for.
But okay.
Okay.
If they have a DNR in file, wouldn't, if they didn't update it or anything and they said that, hey, I don't want a DNR, wouldn't you still go by off of the DNR and not receive?
If their heart stopped, yes.
Okay,
So, that's kind of a good question, but you're talking about there's been treatment versus resuscitation.
okay.
So usually what they'll do is there's a certain extent they can go to, heart stops, no, not touching it. Yeah. So the person there, those closely associated with them, you said 30 days. That's good, because that's the question I asked. How long?
Yeah.
All right, other time frames. How long? Does everyone run with 30 days? 30 days sounds good,
Sounds good.
okay? Anyone think that you need a shorter time frame?
I'm gonna say it's either 2 weeks, like 14 days or 30 days that they give you.
Could be 14.
But I've also heard of people that come up for like years.
Yeah, but it depends on if they need a bed because now these days people are starting to kick them to the curb.
So a lot of it is this, time element's a hell of a thing for it. If you said time, it's like, is that person gonna get better? How long is that gonna take? Is this no, and we're just waiting for the person just to finally give out? Or is it, we don't know? And if we don't know, can we pull the plug?
That was me.
Okay. This is a question some of you might get. You need to have a firm answer and when you know when that should be, right? You're gonna tell me like one day. You're like, okay, that's problematic, right? Yeah, there are people who are like that. Hell, if I asked you about, doctors and nurses who kill,
Oh, they do.
hell, yeah, they do. If I said, medical, malpractice, how many people die from that? Okay? How many of those might be willful? Right? Sometimes that bad care you get, where you're not getting some medicine you're supposed to be, might not be accidental. Right? If you're gonna do it, get away with it, where would you go? Probably the medical field where there's a lot of deaths, right? Cause I can get pretty close to undetectable there. Day, 14 days, 30 days, 6 months. I don't know. Right? There's gonna be so many factors associated with the individual situation. It's really hard to say. We're gonna say that there's any specific timeline, right? Your brain dead, day one, you can make that decision. It ain't coming back, right? That activity is not gonna just start back up out of nowhere as a general rule. One day, maybe that's enough. Okay, he's brain dead, he's 78 years old, no family, no job. Actually got picked up outside of a 7-Eleven, unconscious, right? That's sufficient. May not be what's makes us feel good, but to make that clear decision, that's pretty good. Your comatose grandparents, whom you love, whom you know, still enjoying life and still up moving just fine. Now they're in that same situation. Like, we don't know. They're really old. They could get better in 6 months. It's maybe it. They may decline. It's like, then it's just gonna be wait and watch. At some point, you gotta figure out where that breaking point is. You do it wrong. Right? Making that choice. Is that homicide? Homicide is just killing another person. You played an integral role in that. You made that decision. Did you do that? You made the decision. You set those things in motion. Right? So to some degree, we recognize that, yes, there are very valid reasons for this. There are also some that aren't as clear. If I said Dr. Kevorkian, how many of you recognize that name? 50s, either. You are making me feel old. You know, Dr. Death?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I didn't know his name. I just knew him as Dr.
That's what I
Death.
was thinking
Jack
of.
Kevorkian. He's the guy who did this for a living, right? Basically, if you look him up, what he would do is those of his patients that were terminally ill, all of them are going to die. Terminally ill, you're gonna die. We know the time frame. It's not typically gonna be longer than this, and it can be as short as weeks, right? You're dealing with someone who is going to die, who is in tons of pain, and here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna set you up. I put this IV in you. It's gravity fed. It's got poison in it. All I have to do is put your arm down. As soon as you do, poison runs in. A couple minutes, you're gone. Right? Videotaped it every single time. Would send it in. And guess what? We start looking to start passing assisted suicide statutes. Start to lock those down to where what he was doing was criminalized. I ended up getting a murder charge later in life. Because by the time all that stuff was taking place, he ended up making a video where he just injected the drugs directly into somebody who's already willing and killing them. So at that point in time, it's not assisted, that's just straight murder, right? And so they ended up getting him for that. Various states, have different levels of addressing that. So the state that he was in, I don't know if they ended up taking the actions over to specifically take what he was doing, basically shutting that door. That's why he did that. It was one of those things, it's like, is this okay or isn't it? Okay, it's a yes, no. Right now, we're looking, yes. Okay, where are the limits? We don't know. Looking across the board, could be anywhere from serious infirmity to you're a kid with severe depression or some other mental illness, right? Is that acceptable? You are gonna have to vote on that at some point soon, right? People you elect will pass statutes on it. It will. It'll come up. All right, so we'll continue talking about definition of death next class. Then we'll go through, I don't know. The another human being department, I'll tell you what that one's about, because that's our topic. Tell me if we want to start that next time, or if we want to wait. Project maybe last to get through these things. Topic will be abortion. You want to start that next class? You guys want to wait?
We can start with this.
I got one saying start next class. Okay, so we'll do a little preface for that, and then we'll move into it, and I'll start showing you what's going on with that. I'll explain it to you. I'll explain why the statutes are the way that they are, and I'll show you most of the misconceptions that are taking place right now, and why it's a political issue. Probably a really big one for the next upcoming national election. I don't understand why it is, but I'll explain it. We'll move into that next class. Have a great day.
Sorry.
All right. For those of you online, have a great day. I will see you later. Bye.